Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Tonight is a sort of a retrospective of all things that have happened to me over the last 25 years, good and bad. And that was a piece written by a great guy called Dave Cousins from a band called Straws that I was in for about a year and a bit. And there was, in that year, a lot of things happened. The first thing I ever did with Straws was play in a circus, because nobody else would have us. And we played in this circus in France. And it was actually, the idea was great. The idea of us sort of playing there was, instead of the circus having the normal circus band, doing the old, and all that rubbish, he decided it'd be really good to have different bands playing according to what the different acts were. And in the circus, and they had like a heavy metal band playing for the lion tamer. It did, yeah. Frightened the lion to death, it did. He was like staying in the corner like that. And we were basically a little folk band. I played acoustic piano, and there was two acoustic guitars and a double bass. And we had two pieces to play. We played for the man who fell off tables. He used to build all these tables up on top of each other, and he used to climb up the top and then fall off. Really exciting act it was. And then, and the other one was for the child jugglers. But after a week, we were reduced to one piece because the man who went up the tables fell off and broke his leg. So we were back down to one piece, which is a story of my life, really. What I've done with all the different pieces from the different bands and sessions and things that I've done with tonight is to try and adjust them all into sort of a piano-orientated idea. And I've also picked on a couple that I wrote myself, which started off on piano. So I can't go wrong then. And also, as I'm the only one who knows those particular arrangements, this is Catherine Howard.
very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Back in 1970, I got a phone call from Cat Stevens, and he phoned me up, and no, he's not here. And he phoned me up. He said, "Look, I'm going to do a new album called Teaser and the Firecake. He said, I'd like you to play on it. Would you be interested?" "Yeah, I'd love to." And he said, "I want to do the hymn Morning Has Broken. Do you know it?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got the music?" And I said, "I have, actually. It's in my Boys Brigade hymn book." And he said, "Could you bring it along? Really nice to do it." He said, "The producer's not very keen." He said, "But I really would like to do this." I said, "Fine." So I went along to the studios, the big studios in London, and went in there, and Paul Samuel Smith was the producer. He said, "You bought the music, Rick?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "All right. Well, you and Steve play it through." I said, "Okay." So Cat Stevens and I sat down and we played it through. And it's a unique piece of music because it's probably one of the most beautiful melodies ever written. But what's really interesting about it, unlike any other piece of music, whether it be a hymn, a Christian piece, or a secular piece, it's just a verse. There's no choruses, there's no bridge, there's no middle eight, there's no nothing. It's just the one wonderful piece of music, 4 verses. So we played it through, and Paul Samuel Smith said, "Yeah, great." He said, "Well, it's 44 seconds long." He said, "That's really good." He said, "The grooves are wider than that." So he said, "Can you find an intro or something?" I said, "Now, the reason I played Catherine Howe beforehand was to remind anybody or anyone who doesn't know how the intro goes, because I was actually, at that particular time, in the middle of writing Catherine Howe. And Cat Stevens said, "What was that piece you were playing?" While we were, while I was in the control room. I said, I was practicing a piece called Catherine Howe, which I hope to put on an album in a year's time or something, whatever." He said, "I really like the opening of that." He said, "We'll use that." I said, "No, you can't use that. I've already written it." He said, "It doesn't matter." He said, "Nobody will know, will they?" He said, "You wrote it. Who's going to complain?" I said, "Well, I can adapt it." He said, "Great, adapt it." So I adapted it, and we put it in the beginning and the end and the bit in the middle, and then played it. And Paul Samuel Smith said, we said, "How are we doing, Paul?" He said, "You're up to 1 minute 50. Keep going." He said, "How about a key change?" I said, "All right." So we adapted the middle bit and got a key change and everything going, and eventually we got it up to the requisite 3 minutes. We finished it, piano and acoustic guitar and bass and things. And then Steve said, "It'd be nice to have a harmonium on it, wouldn't it? One of those little organs that you pump away." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I can get one of those." He said, "The music shop. Would you play if I got?" I said, "Yeah, all right." So we got this old harmonium in, which made more noise with the pedals pumping it up than it did me playing it, but he was happy, so I put it on, and I thought he might give me extra money, so I acted very keen, and we sort of, and then we finished. He said, "Choir would be nice, wouldn't it?" I said, "Choir? Where am I going to find a choir in Willesden at 4:30 in the afternoon?" And he said, so we went round all the studios, all the other 4 studios, and got anybody who could sing and got them all together, and we put the choir bits on. Then the remarkable things started to happen, and the first one is remarkable to me this day. Steve said, "I'm going to put the vocals on." He said, "Give me 20 minutes, I need 20 minutes. So I thought, I wonder what he's going to do. Now, what's interesting is that about a year before, he'd had tuberculosis and had a lung removed. And he went out speaking just like I'm speaking now, so I'll be back in 20 minutes. He went outside, smoked a pack of cigarettes to keep his voice going, came out and said, "Right, I'm ready now." And it stunned me. I mean, absolutely stunned me. That was the first amazing thing. The second amazing thing was that I got $12 and 8 weeks to collect it. Unbelievable. But there's 2 other amazing things. The record company, and I can say it now because they've been sold, Ireland have been sold since then, didn't want it. They didn't want to put a hymn on the album. And Cat Stevens wanted it as a single, and they said, "No, we're not putting it out as a single." But they put it on the album, and the album came out, and they took a single off of the album. Can't remember what it was, and it got to about 19 or 20 in the charts. They were delighted. They made some money, and then they put another single out, and it made some money. They put a third single out and made some money. They actually put a 4th single out, and it got sort of in the late 20s, and they were pleased. And then a really nice thing happened. In true record company greed, they thought, what else we got around 3 minutes we can put out and make a couple of bob? Morning Has Broken. Oh, I would stick that out. Number 1 for 5 weeks, biggest seller they ever had. Brilliant. But here comes the twist in the tale, because After it was such a big hit, there was an interesting thing. Paul Samuel Smith would never give anybody a credit on any of Cat Stevens' records. So I never got a credit, which didn't worry me too much. But the fun thing that happened, and got his own back on the record company and Paul Samuel Smith, was as soon as it was a big, massive hit, of course, they had to go out and play it. And I was the only one who knew how it went. Thanks. John Anderson and I have been mates for longer than we both sort of care to admit, really, at times. And John comes and visits me. I live on a little island right out in the middle of the Irish Sea. It's only ever so small, 30 miles long by 12 miles wide. I'll tell you a bit more about it later. But John comes over sort of once a year and spends about a week or 2 weeks because he likes the island. Now, so John's a great mate of mine. And the best description I've ever heard of John, really, is the one that he gave himself once, which I probably said I would always keep a secret, but you can keep a secret, can't you? So, description of John, from John himself, is the only man that we know of who's trying to save this planet while living on a totally different one. Now, John came to stay with me. He hasn't been over this year yet. He came over last year, end of last year, and it was wonderful because John loves to paint. He loves to paint. He arrived over, we can do some writing, and he said, "Can you get me a room where I can paint?" And I said, "Yeah, you know." I said, "No problem, John." So I took him to a lovely hotel right on the front of the bay in a place called Douglas, which is the capital of the little island. It's stunningly beautiful seas and lovely docks and lighthouses and little castle. And I took him in there, and the manager, Mr. Quayle, I said, "Mr. Quayle," I said, "Hello, Rick." I said, "This is John Anderson." "Oh, it's very pleased to meet you, John. said, got a lovely room. I said, John likes to paint. He said, well, we'll give him the room right at the top, the suite overlooks the sea where he can paint. So, and John said, oh, that'd be nice, great. So I took him up there, and John set all his stuff up. And I said, look, John, I'm going to go back home. It's a beautiful summer's night. I said, look, I'm going to trot home. I'll pick you up in the morning about 10:30. We'll go to the studio and do some writing and things. He said, okay, yeah, great. So I left him then. I went home, and I came back in the morning. I'm just going up to his room, and the manager comes out, Mr. Quine, and said, Rick, can I have a word? And I said, yeah. He said, your mate? I said, yeah. He says, is he all right? And I said, yeah, he's fine. Why? He said, has he visited Earth before at all, or is this... And I said, what's he done? He said, he's painting. I said, he likes to paint. He said, yeah, can I come up to the room now? I said, I went up there earlier to give him his breakfast, and he's painting. I said, yeah, good. So he said, I thought, well, so we went up there. Went to John's room. John said, come in. So we go in there, and there he is. He's in this beautiful bay window, and he's got the easel set up like that, and he's looking out at the view behind him. There's the beautiful lighthouse and the docks and the little tower of refuge and the things and boats sailing by, and John's going, oh, lovely. And the old manager said, go on around and have a look. Go on have a look. So I went round and had a look, and there's John. And he's painted a flower. You know. I said, yeah. He said, he's painted a flower. With the view, I said, yeah, he can only paint flowers. You know. But he likes doing it to a view. John and I have written some stuff between us, and he's written some lovely stuff. And this is a piece that I'm very fond of because, for me, it's a very Christian and spiritual piece. And it was the first thing that John actually played to me on his acoustic guitar when I rejoined the band in 1976, and it adapts really quite nicely to piano. It's a piece called Wondrous Stories. As I said, I live on a little island, and the church that I belong to, which is Broadway Baptist Church, is probably one of the biggest on the island. Now, you've got to bear in mind, you get more people coming through in a week than we've got living on the island. So when I tell you that we get congregations in our Baptist church of 250, 300 in the morning, the same in the evening, that when you consider we've only got 60,000 people, that's pretty brilliant for our place, and we're very well attended, and it's a great church. But there's another church that my wife and I like to go to a lot, which is the oldest Christian site on the Isle of Man, and it's a little church called St. Luke's. Now, St. Luke's only holds about 22 people, 23 people, flat out. That's at a push as well, with standing room only, and it never really gets full up because it's right at the top of a hill and not a lot of people can get there. No electricity. We've got a little stove in the middle, wood-burning stove. And the story that I said to Dan Wooding that I was going to tell about it, I told him, he said, "You can't say that." And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Because what you're going to say means something different in America." I said, "I don't understand." "Well, you see, what I'll do, I'll tell you what he told me to say, then I'll tell you what. When we go into our little church on a Sunday evening at St. Luke's, on this little old wood-burning stove, we all take in like, biscuits and cakes and put them on the stove, half-cooked, and then by the end of the service, they're all cooked, and we cook. We then just boil some water on a little fire at the back, and we have coffee and eat the cakes and things that we've all brought up, which is really nice. But we don't call them cakes in England; we call them buns. And I said, everybody comes up there, so it's really nice cold evening. We all put our buns on the stove in the middle. Gets very cold up there, I tell you. But you know what is most amazing, and this is what really is phenomenal. I came here a couple of years back. Dan brought me here, and I've never seen anything like this, but it completely blew me away. I took back the book on the history of the Calvary Chapel and everything, and the things, and Chuck told me. I mean, I just had a wonderful time. But what was amazing, can you imagine the difference between this and my little church of St. Luke's? And I left here after seeing the service, attending the service on the Sunday, flew home on the Monday, and the following Sunday I found myself up at St. Luke's in this little church with about 16 other people with the little stove in the middle and candles just to light it. And I couldn't help but grin. I mean, it was just to think of the comparison that the previous week I've been with like 3,000 people and more people out on the lawn and in just one of the services, and there I am with Mrs. Quayle and her knitting and the cakes cooking and I sat there and I just thought how wonderfully wide Christianity can spread and how it works in different ways. And I thought it was marvellous. And after the service, Malcolm Convery, the vicar up there, came over to me and said, "Hello, Rick, nice to see you back." I said, "Thank you, Malcolm." He said, "I thought my sermon this evening was quite serious." I said, "It was, Malcolm, it was." He said, "Well, why were you grinning throughout?" I said, I wasn't. He said, "You were." He said, "You almost laughed at one stage." So I explained to him. And from all of that, and including that site up there, I wrote a suite of music for the Isle of Man, for the heritage, which includes 4 pieces based on 4 of the oldest Christian sites on the island. It's a very classical suite of music based on the styles of the late 19th century Russian composers. You can see that's riveted you for a start. And you'll be very pleased to know that the Isle of Man had to sit through all 12 of them a little while ago, but tonight you've only got to sit through 2 of them. I've linked 2 together. It's St. Michael's Isle and Chapel Hill. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bowie was an amazing man. I did have a wonderful time. No, he's not here either. I did have a wonderful... I did... I don't put these stooges here. It's wonderful, isn't it? It's great. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. David, it was a remarkable character. I knew him for many years. I'll tell you a story I actually haven't told before. Just after we did Space Oddity together, I used to run a little folk club in Acton in East London, West London, and we were in terrible trouble. We were running with no finances, and we were losing money hand over fist, and we couldn't afford to pay any decent acts to go in. And David had just had #1 with Space Oddity, and he started around the folk circuit and things, and he came to me and said, Rick, I hear, the club's doing bad. And I said, well, I think it's going to have to fold up. We're in desperate trouble, really. He said, I'll do a night for you. He said, I'll come along with the L12 string and do it. I said, you're joking? He said, yeah, I will. I said, you serious? He said, yeah. I said, well, I can't afford it, David. He said, just give me my expenses. He said, that's all I need. Just the money for the train fare, and that's all I need. I said, this is fantastic. So I took adverts out in the Melody Maker, which was the top British music paper. All the music papers, I took loads and loads of adverts out because I knew that I wouldn't have to pay for them till after he'd done it, so everything would be fine. So there was ads everywhere. There was posters everywhere in posters. David Bowie appearing at the Droop, which was my club in West Acton. Fantastic. And everybody thought it was a gag, and 5 people turned up. I was actually more upset than that little R that you got then. I was sort of more like, ah! So it was amazing. David Bowie, there he was selling out Wembley Stadium, and he folded my little club up because I got bills galore. Anyway, David and I remain great friends and still are great friends. But what amazes me about all the biographies that have been written about David Bowie, that none of them actually delve into how he wrote his music, not properly. And so I thought I'd sort of share with you a little thing. But when we did Hunky Dory, he phoned me up. And at that time, I was living in the tiniest of little houses. In fact, a little bit smaller than the piano. No, in fact, a lot smaller than the piano. And he phoned me up and said, look, I'm doing this album, Hunky Dory. Would you like to come over and we'll run through some pieces? I said, oh, yeah, great. So I went over to his house, and he lived in Accoutic, or a town called Beckenham. And his house was the biggest house I'd ever seen. I called it Beckenham Palace, which the Queen didn't like very much, but he thought it was I mean, he had a hall. I couldn't believe it. An entrance hall. I'd never seen a house with an entrance hall. Anyway, he went in there and he said, look, as you know, I write everything on the 12-string guitar. And he's got this battered old 12-string guitar, which he writes everything on and still does to this day. And he taught me a great lesson because he said, I said to him, well, you've got so much good gear. Why do you sort of write everything on this? He said, well, if it can sound good on this, then whatever I can do with it, it'll sound great. He said, you always do preliminary sketches. He said, you don't go straight in the thing with your paint pot with all your colours. He said, because the colours can fool you into making things think things are good. And I learned from that, and everything I wrote from that moment on, I just did on the piano, because I thought, I'll work on that principle. It's a great principle, because if it can sound good on the piano, you can pretty much turn it to anything. And that's how he always wrote on the acoustic. But he said, what I want to do is to attack the songs from a different angle. So he said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to play you the songs one by one, make as many notes as you like, and then I want you to play them back to me as you would as if they were piano solos. He said, then I'll get the band, Mick Ronson and all the other lads, to work around that, so we're coming from the piano angle. So one by one, he played me these songs like Changes and Life on Mars and things, and my just jaw dropped. One after the other was just fantastic songs. And I knew at that time, I don't think I'd ever played on an album with such a consistent standard of such phenomenal songs. I mean, just one after the other. And it was marvellous going in the studio because, of course, everybody had to play around what I did on the piano, which was great. But I only ever did it for that week, obviously, and everybody, a lot of people knew that I played on the album. People said, oh, yeah, that's great, that's good. And about a month ago, I was on a chat programme in England called The Danny Baker Show, which is, I suppose, the equivalent to what, Danny Baker is the equivalent to what Johnny Carson was over here before he retired. I mean, he's like bigger than Kellogg's Cornflakes. I mean, everybody watches Danny, he's like huge. So I was on the programme, doing my, doing a little spiel, not playing anything. Because I've got this weird situation in England that I'm known better for doing quiz programmes and chat programmes and, in fact, Christian programmes than I am for playing the piano. It's ludicrous. Digressing for a second, I did a charity golf tournament not that long ago where the team that I played with was a very big corporate company. And it was for a golf tournament for Howard Keel, who comes to England. He's a great friend of mine who comes to England every year, and we do a tournament for handicapped kids. And he said to me, Rick, when I do when you do the cabaret, I can't get down as low as he can. He said, when we do the cabaret, it was remarkable. I'd never felt so embarrassed in my entire life. There was him, Jack Lemmon, and me. I mean, what a mixture. Talk about the odd trio. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, they were wonderful guys. Anyway, he said, Rick, would you come out and play a bit of classical piano? I said, yeah, of course I will. So at the reception, I played a bit of classical piano. I went back down to the table afterwards, and this guy from this big corporate company I've been out with all afternoon saying, hey, Rick, saw you on that quiz program. Oh, I saw you on that chat show. Great. And I saw you on that program. And I saw you on that Christian program. That's really good. And I came back after playing these, and I sat down. I was there with my wife, and he leant over and he said, can I say something without being rude? I said, yeah, anything you like, yeah. He said, that was wonderful. I said, well, thanks very much. He said, look, I know you do really well on the telly and everything. He said, but you really should consider doing more music as part of your career, you know. I know. There you go. Anyway, back to Bowie. Where was I with Bowie? I can't remember. Oh, yes, right. So I'm on the chat program, the Danny Baker chat program, and we come out to the break, so I was finishing my little stint. He said, well, thanks very much to Rick. He said, when we come back from the break, the live band in the studio, are going to play Life on Mars. So he said, hey, Rick, didn't you play on Life on Mars? I said, yeah. He said, oh, great. He said, Rick, sit in with the band. You can do it. We'll be back after the interval. Rick Wakeman with Life on Mars. So I went, well, great. So I went over there and sat down on the piano, and how's it go? The old stage man's going, 1 minute, 30 seconds. What key is it in? The bass player said F. I said, F? What comes after F? I said, F major 7. I said, right, 1 minute to go. I said, I can't remember it. He said, well, you played it. I said, I can't remember what I played. Can you tell me what I played, please? Teach me what I played. 30 seconds. I went, oh. I said, oh, no, what? Give me your part. I said, you know it? He said, yeah, we've rehearsed. I said, give me your part. I took his part, put it on the piano. All cocky. Go. I got the bass part, hadn't I? So out of embarrassment, I got hold of the publishers after that. It's out of print, and I said, go on, let me have a fax copy. So they faxed a copy through to me, and I brought it, and I thought it'd be a bit of fun, because I've never ever done it before, because you taught me such a lot, David, on starting with the simple things, because if you start with something simple, and you can do anything with it. Make life too complicated, then you can never find the simple things in life. So this is a tribute to my great mate, David Bowie. This is Space Odyssey and Life on Mars. Thank you very much. Thank you. I've had some wonderful times in my periods in and out of Yes. I really have, especially with John. I mean, he does write some amazing stuff every now and then. In fact, more than now, and more now than then. I mean, he just writes amazing stuff that comes out. And occasionally he has what I call, whether he realizes it or not, a real influx of true spirituality, if there's such a word, that comes into him. And I'm occasionally I'm really pleased to be around him when it happens. And such an occasion happened in Montserrat about 4.5 years ago when we filmed that well-known form of lawyers, Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman and Howe. Because we weren't allowed, of course, to call ourselves and or even mention the word in general public. So with ABWH, as it was, we'd finished recording for the day, and John and I were just hanging around in the studio, and I was playing a piece based on a piece I'd written for my wife off of an album called The Family Album. And John said, "Have you used that?" And I thought, oh, here we go, Cat Stevens all over again. I said, "Yes, John, as it happens, I have." He said, "Could you adapt it?" Go on, and I said, "What you got?" He said, "I got a song called The Meeting." And I went, "Have you?" And he said, "Yeah." He showed me the words. He got a basic, rough outline of a tune. And we worked on it. What we thought was only just a few minutes, but it was basically all through the night. And as amazing luck would have it, the engineer came back at some ludicrous hour in the morning. I can't even remember what for. And John said, "Run the old tape. Run the old DAT." So he ran it, and we played it. We did re-record. We kept it, remember, and about a week later, John tidied up the lyrical content and the tune. I altered a few things around, and then we recorded it. And when we did it on stage, a lot of people said to me, "Very theatrical that, when you did that." I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Well, you always used to, when the opening sort of chords were being played by Julian and John was just waiting, you used to face with your back to the audience and head bowed, everything." I said, "Well, it wasn't really." I said, that was every time in every set, and I have done for donkey's years, found a moment where I can say a little prayer to thank the boss for getting me and giving me the gift that I've got." And I said, that was my moment for doing it in the meeting. So when I came to do this tour for Assist, I thought I've got to get the meeting in because it's also my moment of saying thank you, because it's only in the last sort of over the last period of 9 to 10 years, and it gets better. I'm pleased to say every year that I remember, I've started to remember that I've only borrowed the talent that I've been given, and it's about time I try to use it properly, which is really what I'm trying to do. So this is a piece called The Meeting. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to finish off tonight with a little piece of music from an album that I recorded a long time ago called Myths and Legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Oh, good grief. Very quickly, I'll tell you why it was called The Myths and Legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and not anything shorter, was because I noticed in Billboard when I first came over here, and Cashbox, which are the two main trade papers, that everybody got one line in the top 100. And I thought, if I had a title that took up more than one line, I'd get a bit of extra space, wouldn't I? Billboard called it King Arthur. So I only got me line. Now, this story I'm going to tell, there's a reason for telling this story. First of all, one of the reasons is it's hilarious in one respect. The other important thing for telling it is because the good Lord gives us messages sometimes not in the straightforward way that we really think to. Sometimes there's bizarre situations happen to us and lots of things that culminate in an event happening. I've been teetotal now for 9-10 years. Before that, I used to drink for Britain in the British Olympic drinking team. I was captain. Oh yeah, big time. Apparently I had a wonderful time, so people told me. I don't remember a lot about it, but apparently... it's amazing what happens to teach you lessons. And this was all part and parcel of my arriving, in fact, very shortly after that, at what I lovingly call my two ups in my life, which was the two ups are when I grew up and owned up. And it was very important to me, the things that happened. Now, the most bizarre things always ever happened to me, and I've told this story a few times, and I have to make it very clear that, first of all, it is funny, but I'm telling it for a reason. It just shows how ridiculous my life had got into. It's certainly nothing that I'm even remotely pleased about. In fact, when you analyse the story, I should be shot. But on the other hand, it just shows what a state I got myself into, and it concerns almost 10 years ago to the day. It was April 1984, and my Saturdays, where I used to live in England, in Camberley, were, pretty much to a fixed routine, which in the morning I'd go and play golf, which is in fact something I still do now on a Saturday morning when I'm home, often play a round of golf. Then I would go into the local town, which was called Camberley, where I would have an Indian meal, big Indian curry, big fierce Indian curry. Then I would go down to the local football team, Camberley Town football team, where I was the chairman, where I would watch them lose. They lost every week, without fail. Then I would go into the director's room after the game and have a couple of drinks with the visiting directors of the opposing side, as is the custom in Britain, before driving home. And that was my Saturday, and that had been my Saturday for ages. Now, a few interesting things had happened prior to that, which was I'd started to really question what was going on in my life. So this was really a key moment. This particular Saturday in April, as I say, April the 4th, it was 1984. I'd finished my game of golf and I went into town and I had a particularly fierce curry, as we lovingly call them, and I went down to the football match where they lost 6-0. It's quite a close game for them, if I remember. It really was. Yeah. Actually, they would have stood more chance in the World Cup than England did, but there you go. I bet you're pleased the England supporters aren't here, aren't you? We're pleased. Anyway, where was it? Right, I watched them lose, and I went into the director's room afterwards and had a couple of drinks. In fact, I know exactly where I had a brandy and a large beer, and I drank it with them. And then suddenly, the curry that I'd had at lunchtime, really hit me bad. And I said, "Listen," I really don't feel very well. Would you excuse me? I'll go home. I said, I had a curry at lunchtime, and I think it wasn't particularly good. And I said, "Oh yes, no problem, Rick. Off you go." So I said, "Right, thank you very much." So I got in my car, and I only had a mile to go home, and I got about half a mile. And this is where guilty on all charges, right? And I was half a mile from the house in a 30-mile-an-hour speed zone, in a line of traffic doing 35. But everybody was doing 35, but that's by the by. And I saw a policeman. He was halfway up the road with his radar going, but he wasn't doing anything to anybody, so I just carried on going. But as I got nearer to him, he pointed at me and pulled me in. He pulled me into this little side road. I'm only half a mile from my house, and I wound down the window. He wasn't a local policeman, but he knew who I was. And he said, "Rick Wakeman." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Have you been down Camberley Town Football Club?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Have you had a drink?" I said, "Yeah." I had a brandy and a beer. And he said, "Well, you've admitted having a drink. I'm going to give you the alcohol breath test. So I thought, I'll be all right. I thought, I'm bound to be all right. That won't be a problem. So I said, yeah, okay. So I got out the car and I blew in this thing and he took it away and he said, you failed. You're under arrest. And I couldn't believe it. I was just stunned. And people had started to come out of their houses and were looking over at me. And I'm half a mile from my house. And I thought, oh, I don't believe this. And he said, I've called for a patrol car to come and pick us up and take us to the police station. He said, in the meanwhile, you'll wait here. So I'm standing there. And then suddenly, this curry really sided me really bad. And I said, excuse me, Mr. Policeman, sir. I said, but I really don't feel very well. And I just wondered if there's any way we could walk to the police station. I said, it's very close. I mean, it's not far from here. And it wasn't. It was only about 100 yards. I said, we could go to somebody's house. And he said, no. He said, you stand there. And I really was in pain. But I thought, and then another policeman turned up on a motorbike. And I knew this policeman. He's a local guy called Murray. And he came over and he said, what's happened here? And I said, I've been done for drinking and driving. And I said, he said, well, I can't do anything. I said, well, I'm not expecting you to. I said, you can help me. I said, I've got the most dreadful stomachache. I need a bathroom badly. He won't let me go to the police station. We're waiting for a patrol car. He won't let me use somebody's house. And he said, look, let me go and have a word with him. So we went and had a word with this policeman and then came back. He said, all right. He said, we'll go and use somebody's house. And he put me in this arm lock and walked me across the road like this to this woman where this woman was on the doorstep. And he said, madam, do you have a downstairs bathroom? She said, yes. He said, I wish to commandeer it for the use of our prisoner. So we go in there, and she says, it's in there. So he goes in and inspects it for some reason, and he just comes out and says, right, in you go. So I go in there, and I think this is unbelievable. This really is, ridiculous. I'm here in my Camden Town blazer and badge and tie in a stranger's bathroom. Been done for drunken driving. I go to shut the door, and he puts his foot in the door. He says, you're not shutting the door. He said, in case you lock yourself in there. He said, no, you're not shutting the door. I thought this gets more bizarre. Camden Town blazer, somebody's bathroom, stranger's house, done for drunk driving, the policeman's size 14 boot in the door. I thought nothing else can possibly happen. And at that moment, the Journey to the Centre of the Earth album cover came through the crack in the door. And this woman's voice said, will you sign it for my son, Jeffrey? They took me away and slung me in what we lovingly call the Crowbar Hotel in England, in jail for a bit, where I had time to really start to think. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I ever learned. Luckily, the one lovely thing is that what people don't realise sometimes is the good Lord does have a great sense of humour. And I really believe with a lot of the things that happened in my life that he's used ridiculous situations to get across the message to me, because there's been a few people that have had infinite patience with me in my life. My parents had infinite patience with me. My music teachers had infinite patience, but nobody could have had more than the boss, because it took like 35 years before I took the last 10 years of realising that I had to try and do a few things properly. But the breathalyzer story, as I say, please accept it as the most ridiculous thing, but something that was, in a strange way, very important that happened. Thank you for coming along and supporting Assist. It means a lot to me. Dan Wooding's been a friend of mine for 28 years. He is one of the most remarkable men I have ever met, and I will, as to use an old hackneyed English expression, I would wade through boiling oil for that man. I hope you would do the same. Pleasure.